Welcome to a very special episode of Southern Hang. We're four friends from college. I'm Neil Wilding. I'm joined by Sherman Brown. Normally we're joined by Red and Cotton, but they had to sit this one out. But we did that very typical suburban dad thing and started a podcast. Thankfully, people listen, and our audience has continued to grow. Usually it's grown because we just have lucked into some amazing guests that we've had on the show, and today is no exception. We've got a legend. I only get starstruck with people that actually mean a lot to me and change my life. You might not know who they are, but to me, it's like meeting a legend. So please welcome from one of the bands that changed my life. Well, wait, hold on a sec. I need to pause because those aren't actually my words. Those are the words, I must confess, from none other than Dave freaking Grohl from stage at a Foo Fighters concert in October. I think it was 2017 or so. But our guest can speak to that in a minute. I'm, of course, referring to our very special guest, none other than Louisville legend himself, Peter Searcy. Peter, welcome to Southern Hang, man.
I thought that sounded a little familiar.
Oh man, yeah. I saw that video, circulate once it happened, and man, I imagine that was quite the moment for you, bud.
It was definitely crazy. Nothing I ever thought would happen.
So that was like I mentioned that a little bit. So that was at a Foo Fighters show. Was that in Louisville? Or
no, that was a Foo Fighters show in Birmingham, Alabama.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the tour manager for the Foo Fighters, he's been with them forever, Gus. Somebody I knew from years ago touring with Big Wheel, and he didn't have my number for a long time. Ran into somebody who had my number, and he got it and reached out to me and said if I ever wanted to come to a Foo Fighters show to let him know, and I did, and he said, yeah, you're on the guest list, come on out. And as I was showing up to go into the show, he texted me and said, brush up on your Squirrel Bait lyrics. And I said, what? He said, Dave wants to play Sun God tonight. And I was like, okay. So, of course, I couldn't get cell service inside the arena. So, I was trying to figure out what the lyrics were. I didn't really remember them completely.
Because you were how old when you wrote that song?
I was 16 or 17, probably 16, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, it had been a minute. I've played it a couple times solo, but mostly, it'd been a long time.
Yeah.
When you got that phone call, Peter, is that something where you knew he, knew your stuff, knew your, you had been an influence on him? Did you already know that?
I did, yeah. Through just word of mouth, and then also he brought Sun God up in a Rolling Stone, I think best of the '80s kind of thing, or best punk rock song. I can't remember what it was, but that was one that he played for Taylor Hawkins, and they both commented. Taylor had never heard it and commented that he thought that Kurt must have listened to that because it definitely predated the Nirvana stuff and kind of was a harbinger of what was going to come there. So,
wow. Well, that band, like we, the guys here, our podcast, we normally trend towards music, and I'm talking about things, and I started talking about the Louisville scene and you guys and what led to like Slint and what you did with Starbilly and things like that. Can you tell it, like, take us back to those days? Like, what was it like being a teenager playing music in Louisville?
Well, a lot of it is because of the Brown School, which is a school that is kind of a tie through a lot of bands from that era. But there was music from all over. I think not being influenced by outside influences. Louisville was just kind of its own thing. we weren't Chicago, we weren't New York, we were kind of in between. It was an era before the internet. You had to really want alternative music. You really had to want alternative art and search it out. And it was here. We had, Ear Ecstasy was around.
Yeah.
That was a great source. But and also, also music back then brought all sorts of different people together. I mean, we had friends from the south end of Louisville, east end of Louisville. All of us would skate together. All of us would, make music together. And we looked up to people who were a little bit older than us that were doing the same thing. And some of those people went to Brown School. Wolf Knapp was from Antietam. You had Janet Bean, who would go on to be in 11th Stream Day. All these were people that, were kind to me. They were older than me, but they were kind to, a younger kid. And we grew up wanting to make music like them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just the scene was and we had a few places that we could play. I mean, it's not unlike probably a lot of scenes around the country from that era, the hardcore scenes and the punk rock scenes. But I think Louisville's location kind of put it out on an island a little bit. And I think that's why there is why we kind of created our own vibe and sound. We weren't as heavily influenced by things. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get a ton of shows coming through, so we had to make our own.
And so you're like, you said 16, you're a teenager, you're in a band with some buddies you skate with. How does it go from that to getting something put down on record that starts to pick up some momentum and get noticed?
Well, David Grubbs, who was the guitar player and the main songwriter in Squirrel Bait, had a fanzine. He was in, and that was a big thing back then, was having your fanzine.
Yeah.
He was in contact with Steve Albini.
Yeah.
And just, you could reach out to your heroes then, and they would respond because they were only one step really removed from who you were. Mm-hmm. And Steve gave us, I remember, I think he gave Grubbs some recording advice, and then we went in the studio, and then Grubbs shared that with Albini, who I think pushed it towards Homestead, and the next thing you know, we're signed. If you don't know that you can't do something, you don't know it. All of a sudden, we're signed to a pretty cool indie label. A label at the time that had Dinosaur before legally they had to change it to Dinosaur Junior. But they had Dinosaur, they had Sonic Youth, they had Big Black, they had Naked Raygun, all these bands that I looked up to, and then here we are in high school on the same label. And I didn't know we couldn't do that. I didn't know you couldn't go get a record deal. Thought
you did. That's amazing.
Yeah, so we did. There's nothing. I mean, when that's why kids can learn things so quickly. Is there's no inhibitions.
Yeah. Well, and Steve Albini, I mean, I guess he did a few things, right?
He did. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's.
I wish I'd known. When I met Steve, I found him really unlikable. I know that there was a point where he made a change. I wish I could have met him later in life because everybody loves him. And when I met him, he was really unlikable.
Mm-hmm. Huh. So you're and you had a pretty gosh, I'm probably going to say this right. Is it Husker Du or Husker Du? Husker Du. Mm-hmm. Like didn't you have a pretty big show where you got to open for them, and was that a big moment?
Well,
we
got to play shows with a lot of what I would say were people I really looked up to up at the Jockey Club, which was a really amazing, famous club up in Newport, Kentucky. So. I mean, we played there with, we played with Husker Du on the New Day Rising tour there. And then not long after that, Bob mentioned us in a Spin magazine article. And I believe he tried to sign us he had a little label and tried to sign us to that. but we ended up going with Homestead.
Gotcha.
But one iteration of Squirrel Bait, I was not invited to that show. Played with Minutemen there.
Oh, gotcha.
Let's see, Articles of Faith. I mean, these are all, you either know them or you don't. You're either, it's a punk rock time. I can't remember who else we played with, but we probably played about, maybe 8 shows up there at the Jockey Club.
Yeah. And so you did that, and then you kind of went your separate ways with those guys, and you did Big Wheel, and where I actually first learned of your music was through Starbilly. And that was a big record, at least in Louisville. I mean, you got some radio play with that. Look at Sherm. There he is.
Boom. I came through with my receipts, buddy. There you go. I came through with my receipts.
Yeah, Starbilly was, came out of Big Wheel, and I think in some ways, I was, we got a lot of radio airplay here in Louisville, and we got some radio airplay around the country. It never took the next step, and really kind of was the springboard for me wanting to be a solo artist.
Gotcha.
What do you think that when you say it didn't take the next step, that next move didn't hit wherever you think, why was that? If you're looking back now, what do you think the reason? Because to me, let me really preface this. To Neil's point of legend, when I hear the way that Dave Grohl's talking about you, that's the way I think. That's the way I think of you, and that's my intro was Starbilly, and I think of you as somebody, and I'm not Dave Grohl, don't take it the wrong way, but for me of an influence on my life and speaking for a generation, speaking for me at that time, and when I say kind of coming of age and for me the early '90s, that was it, and I think of this album in that my top kind of 10 of
That's
my
awesome.
highs. It is. I mean, it's just a fact. Career Day. We talk about Career Day all the time.
Yeah.
But Heather, the cover of Diane. Just go through the list.
Yeah.
Those are, Anyway, I could speak about it for a long time. But why do you think that didn't hit the way?
Let me speak to what I think really made Starbilly kind of special. This was right before the radio conglomerates took over. So you could have a commercial radio station that could play whatever they wanted to play. And the program director there was a friend of mine, and he loved the album and decided to play it. And had us on a couple of their radio shows back when radio stations would have, big festival like shows. Mm-hmm. And that put us in front of a lot of people that wouldn't have heard us. And then, they had Heather in and Career Day in heavy rotation. So you can't have, granted, we have a wonderful radio station in WFPK in Louisville. Yeah. But this was commercial. This was people listening to it at their work, now you do FPK anyway,
right.
It's completely replaced that. But I think that's what helped our rise in Louisville. I don't think we spent enough time writing songs. I think we spent too much time trying to tour and chase a record deal, because it was an era where if you did this, this, and this, you got a record deal. And at that time, that's what we thought would make us, when it was actually should have been more, we should have concentrated on writing songs more. And we only released one album and an EP in a couple years. We should have been writing a ton of songs. And that was kind of what drove me to want to be a solo artist, is I didn't want to have to wait on somebody else to come up with an idea. I just wanted to let those ideas come out of me.
Yeah, I remember you talked about festivals and stuff. There was one Sherman and I were at. It was they used to do a festival in the park, and then one year they couldn't.
With Bush and Ass Ponies, and I can't remember who else. It was a lot of people. A lot of people cite that one as being really memorable for them.
And then one year you had to go in the garden though, and that one had 16 horsepower. Which I was a big
stabbing
fan
west,
of.
stabbing westward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was fun. That was crazy. And then we did our own show at the Palace.
Wow.
With it wasn't sold out, but there were 1,000 people there. So yeah, it was also an era where just your average music fan would go listen to original music. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that's no slight on average music fan, but the person who's not, reading Paste magazine, not reading Pitchfork, they would go and there were tons of original bands. And I think it's, there still are some great original bands out there, but it was an era that I think was more accepting of that.
Yeah.
Now everything is, tribute bands out there.
On TikTok, right?
Yeah. So.
Well, and so you mentioned the transition to solo work, and you put out a couple solo records. I remember I had moved to Texas at the time, and I found I bought your Couch Songs album that you put out at Waterloo Records in Austin, Texas. And
nice.
And I love nothing more than when a punk rock dude slows down, and that couldn't have been you slowing down more. What a great record that is.
Well, that was fun. That was just literally just kind of sitting around in the basement,
wow,
messing with first home studio kind of thing, and trying to play everything myself. So yeah, that was a fun one to do.
And you had, on that, go ahead, Sherman.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say on that you had some of the songs you had already put out on your solo stuff, and you had Rewind. I think was on that one. Was that all original material, or did you do some covers for that one too?
I believe it was all original, and some of them, some of them were acoustic versions of songs that had been released already, and a couple of them were songs that are exclusively on there.
Sherman, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, but you skipped over, just an album. Could You Please and Thank You to me was again that one. I took my girlfriend at the time to your show and introduced her to your music, and we're married now. But
nice,
it worked.
Hey, thank you, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that, Peter Searcy, bringing people together. But yeah, it was going, and she's from Northern Kentucky, and just that introduction. We still talk about just the music and the feeling. And to Neil's point, I'm describing you and playing Starbilly for her, and then we walk in, and she had not heard the new stuff, and I'm like, it's a little slower, it's a little bit. A little different, but I think you're gonna like it. And it was again just we use the word around here a lot, but just jam. It was awesome. It was just rocked out.
Well,
invent.
Yeah,
I could.
Yeah, invent was invent had some traction. Losing Light and Invent did pretty well at radio, and things were going great with that album. And I really felt like I grew as a songwriter. I was working with a producer named Tim Padalin who really helped me hone my songwriting. And both those songs were doing well, and I was on a label that I really loved. Unfortunately, that label was part of Arista, and at the time, they ousted Clive Davis, who was the head of Arista, because he was too old. He went on to form J Records and have hit records after that, and they brought in L.A. Reid, and he really didn't want anything to do with the bands that were left on the label and the subsidiaries, which Time Bomb was part of. So it was unfortunate, but it's not an uncommon story that we did what we were supposed to do with that album and got it positioned for the for Arista to swoop in and kind of grow that, and and the label wasn't there, basically. So that was it's a story old as time with music.
Yeah. And did you have do you occasionally just hear a track kind of that's yours that gets plugged into like pop culture or something, like music or like TV or movies or whatever?
Well, a number of those songs were used at the time in the teen shows of the day, the Dawson's Creek, the Roswells. That was a really great era also for licensing. Mm-hmm. But I ended up with, later I had a song called I Believe that was on my album Spark, which was on Toucan Cove and Universal. And that ended up being used in a television commercial for, it was some TV show that was coming out, and then also some Oprah Winfrey show. So there was a point there where Oprah owed me money, which was great. And I wish I thought I did get a check from Harpo Productions.
Yeah,
I should have taken a picture of it.
That's cool. That's funny.
That's awesome.
So we were talking Louisville, and you eventually made your way to Atlanta. Is that right? Are you like somewhere in Atlanta now?
Twice, 2 times in Atlanta.
Gotcha.
This is my second go round.
Gotcha. And what are you doing these days? I know you got a lot of music is still very much a part of your life.
Well, doing a couple things. I mean, the day-to-day thing that I'm doing is I'm the tour manager for a band called Yacht Rock Review, and we probably play 90 to 100 shows a year, 2 buses and a semi, and I'm out managing 16 people and trying to keep that afloat. So that's one of those curveballs in life that you never think you're gonna do. And I've had a tour manager, but I've never been a tour manager until this. And it's a great group of guys. It's an incredible show. I know we're coming through Louisville on September 10th.
Gotcha.
At Iroquois Amphitheater. And they're the preeminent yacht rock band. They've been doing it 19 years, and they're fantastic at it.
That's quite the scene.
How did that happen? How did you, as you said...
I know quite a few of the musicians in the band. Greg Lee, who's the bass player, was one of my best friends, and he was the touring bass player and played on Could You Please and Thank You. So, and he's played on some other solo stuff I've done. In 07 or whenever they started Yacht Rock, he would tell me about it, and then it kept growing, and finally it kept growing to where they needed some help, and I jumped in as their tour manager. So,
let me ask you this from a tour manager, and you said you've had a tour manager. What is the thing that you feel like you bring to the job? This is not an interview, don't interview anyway. But what is that like though? That like, what do you feel that you do maybe a little different, and you don't have to call anybody out of old tour managers, but maybe that's a little different, and that is something that you didn't like about it, or that how did that affect you, coming from the music side, the creative side?
Well, I mean, I think that's it right there, is I understand the creative mind, and Yacht Rock Review is a very creative group. You might think it's just playing covers of yacht rock songs, but it's not. It's curating a whole vibe. It's well thought out from the start as to the look, the whole, and it's not well thought out. I mean, it's been thought out over 19 years how to do this the right way. But I believe I understand the creative needs and mindset of artists. So, the same way as a real estate agent, which I've been, is taking care of your client, protecting them, being an umbrella. They don't know what's going wrong behind the scenes, and you don't want somebody to know what's going wrong behind the scenes because it affects them. Mm-hmm. So that's what I try to do as a tour manager.
That's cool.
Yeah. You mentioned being a real estate agent. I told this story to Sherman. So I bought a house, had a house built out in Oldham County, and it was built by Dave Ernst. And so, and I didn't know, I knew Dave was a musician, but I didn't know his background. And so we are closing on the house, and we had gone back to the house, and I'm playing, like he's helping me set up my Sonos system. And dude, I've got probably 20,000 songs in my playlist, and I hit shuffle, and I kid you not, Unmistakable Tick popped up and plays, and Dave goes, Neil, did you do that on purpose? And I said, what are you talking about? And then that's a Starbilly song, and he said, yeah, that was my band. And he said, and by the way, like that real estate agent that you met at the Homerama thing, that was Peter. I was like, oh my God. So you didn't know this and wouldn't remember it, but I actually met you at a Homerama in like, I don't know, 10,
that's great.
15 years ago.
That's great. Yeah. No, I can draw parallels between a lot of jobs, but I can definitely draw a lot of parallels between doing real estate and being a real estate agent and what you do for your clients and being a tour manager.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so doing that, you were asking what I'm up to, doing that. And then, I still write songs from time to time. I don't know that the world needs a 58-year-old pop songwriter, but I still make it.
It does.
And it's just, I don't have, the term bandwidth is kind of cornball, but it does kind of fit the bill here. I don't have the bandwidth to be a record company or a TikTok influencer to promote my music. I love to make music. I don't love to promote myself. So, that's where we are today. There's not a label that's going to make sense for anybody to release this. It's got people who will enjoy it, but they want to enjoy it for free, and I get it. It's just, I can't do it for free. I've got a life that I have to live, and so we're just trying to figure. I've got a new project called the Guilty Birds with Ben from Squirrel, the drummer, and this guy Grant Fitch from a band called P-A-W from back in the day. And we went into the studio with no preconceived notion and almost zero ideas and wrote songs on the fly and played them on the fly with no click, and just kind of crafted stuff right there on the spot. So generally, if you hear any of these songs, it might be the first or second time we've been able to run through them in their entirety. And then I would take the songs home, the bare bones of them, and write lyrics on top of it and figure out how to make these pieces of music into songs. So we have a project that hopefully will see the light of day at some point. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, Peter, you shared a few of those songs with us before we got on, and I got to tell you, you caught lightning in a bottle. There's some magic there,
Absolutely.
man. I do hope that you find distribution for that, because it's an amazing couple of tracks that, at least what you shared with me, I love it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it was such a rewarding recording experience, because I played bass on it, Grant on guitar, and Ben drums, and Ben hadn't drummed in years, and I know he was a little nervous whether he could still drum, and we quickly found out that yes, he could. And but it was also just really freeing to not think about, is this song a single? What does this, who's going to like this? I want to like it. That's the main thing. I want to enjoy it. I recorded those songs just to record them. And I want to do it. That's the main reason I want to release it. I want people to hear it. I don't want to make music in a vacuum. I want people to enjoy it if they can, if they want to. But I want to do it again. I enjoyed the process. So,
what about playing shows? Do you want to take those to a stage somewhere soon?
Sure, we would love to. I hope that we get a chance to. I think it would be a way to play some of those songs, play a couple Paw songs, and because Ben and I are together, play a couple Squirrel songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't feel like age-wise that there is a limit on me performing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there's certainly. I don't think I'm going to take my shirt off at this point and do it. But you know, I think we could play those songs and have a good time. You know, that's just enjoy it. I make a living going out touring. You know, helping a band. I would like to play some music for fun.
That's awesome.
All right.
Are you talk about that process a little bit? In the way you said it, it sounds like that's different than the way you did previously. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
no, you're not wrong at all. So, you know, a lot of times with my solo stuff, I would play. You know, I would set a tempo, play to a click, and lay down a guitar part, and then that would be the basis for what I would build everything around. You know, you could fly those tracks off to a drummer, you know, in another state, and the drummer could play to it, and then I could bring it back here, play bass on it, have a guitar player come in. And that's a great way to make music, and it's a really cool way to work with people you might not get a chance to sit down in a room with. But this was three of us standing around in a room going, well, what do you have? You know, I have this riff. Well, let's play it. I'll play it for a minute, and then you come up with an idea. Don't do it that long. You know, that kind of thing, that back and forth that goes on between musicians. And then not playing to a click track. So every one of those takes is one solid take through the song. Wow. So it's old school. It's how they used to do it. Now, granted, that you could cut tape and splice two different versions of a song, but generally they would have a tempo set and that kind of thing. We didn't use a click, so tempos are wavering. So we can't take one version, this version of this song and this version of this song, and meet them up together, because there's just not going to work.
So you're going through that collaborative process. Do you like one more than the other, or are they just different and you treat them different? And
they're just different. I don't, I really enjoyed the. I don't like being my own engineer. I'm not. I don't enjoy it. I think it takes me out of the creative process if I have to figure out, how to move this part of a song to another part of a song on a computer screen. I really enjoyed being around, really three other creative people, because we had an engineer who quickly figured out what we were trying to do and became a producer on it. A guy named Jerry Hansen, who's just a fantastic drummer here in Atlanta, and drums with Randall Bramlett and Chuck Lavelle, and kind of part of the Macon scene, Allman Brothers kind of scene. And he's fantastic. So he really became a member of the band too. So it was just a bunch of ideas being passed around, and nothing was kind of off base with it.
And so you shared a few tracks with me. Do you have an album full, or you got to go back and work on it?
Yeah, we have 6. We have an EP full.
Yeah, there you
go. We have 6, and I feel like those 6 are really complete, because they we did them 3 and 3, and the first 3 that we did have a feel, and the second 3 we kind of knew how we were going to operate, and those have a feel. And it kind of feels this is a Southern hang. It has kind of a Southern Gothic feel to the whole thing, a little bit. I like to think that we channeled a little REM in it.
Yeah,
a little Husker Du stuff, even though that's not Southern, but it's we're here in Atlanta, which is definitely Southern.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of guys from the South, and so I could definitely hear it in the tracks you shared. Sherman?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, halfway through Nervous Kids, I was like trying to sing along. I felt like you know what I mean? It felt that way. It was like, wait a minute, I've never heard this song. Why am I trying to sing the next line?
Well, we have a song called Sherman's March. I'll have to send it to you.
Send it on.
There we go.
Send it on. Yeah. That definitely has a Southern feel to it. So.
Yes. Yeah.
So with music always being you living in it and being a creator, do you have other artists that you admire? Like, you hear of other musicians that you're listening to these days that we should also pay attention to?
Well, the Wet Leg albums are sure fun.
Mm-hmm. Those girls, man.
Really,
catch these fists.
I mean, just incredible. So much space, so many hooks, so much attitude, and just fun. So that's I know they were darlings a couple years ago. I don't stay super current on things, but I got to go to a party the other day. One of the benefits of living in Atlanta is just the music that's been made here. I got to go to the Stank Anya studio
Nice.
the other day. That was really cool. Just knowing
awesome.
that the music that's been made there. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
Was Andre in there with a
flute?
I had my cello in there. I was playing at a little jam session for a party, and I was thinking, if he brings his flute out, man, he'll definitely want to make an album with me, a flute cello
Flute
duet.
and cello. Now,
that's the collab that I need in my life right now, and that is mixing my. You talked about this thing on here, but that is mixing my two genres.
Oh, that's great.
It's like the punk and rock of the early '90s, and then like mid '90s hip hop.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
just tell AI to try and recreate that.
Judgment Night. It's basically Judgment Night.
Yeah,
That's really they already did it, and now I'm trying to just recreate that all the time. Like that's just what I need. Just every year put out a new Judgment Night album, and I'll be all right.
So we talked about Guilty Birds and what you were doing there, but you also have your own stuff. Are you inspired to write your own stuff too?
I should be more inspired. It's just energy-wise. I just my career as a tour manager eats up a lot of energy. It's a very time-consuming job, and I just it's hard to get the I know I should as a musician be like, I'm ready to play out all the time. It's hard to herd the cats into playing, and but if anybody wants to release some stuff, just let me know. I've got plenty of songs. I don't care who wants to do it. I did a Sabbath tribute in Louisville a few years ago, and I did it this past Halloween. That was really a blast with some of the Yacht Rock Review members.
Awesome.
And did a whole set of Sabbath that I sang, and that was, singing Ozzy stuff is great.
Channeling Ozzy, that's amazing.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So do you, this came about just because we were kind of talking and reminiscing. I mean, I hear constantly in Louisville, hearing bits of, Squirrel Bait will come into the conversation, Slint, Starbilly, all of that. Do you, being out of Kentucky, do you have people reaching out to you trying to reminisce like what we're doing here?
Yeah, a little bit, and it's always great. I'll say it's refreshing to be here in Atlanta and not have that be a thing sometimes, and just feel like there's no expectations musically for who I am as a person, where I feel like Louisville, they were self-created, maybe in my own head, but it's nice being here where there are no expectations.
You mean like dudes fanboying over the realtor that knew the guy that built my house? Like,
No. That's I always felt there was.
He just happened to leave right after.
Yeah, it just happened.
Just get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm out of here, man. I'm moving. I can't handle this.
Yeah. Homerama. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah. No. I love Louisville, and I'm really proud of the music that I made there, and I'm proud of the other musicians that are from Louisville. I mean, and I think we kind of carved out a little niche, and granted, there are other bands from Kentucky who are continuing that tradition. So
yeah, that's right.
I mean, tons of them.
Yeah. Well, Peter, I truly appreciate it. I wanted to leave some time at the end. You and I talked about maybe playing a few snippets or two, and you were kind enough to send some stuff. So we're going to edit in a few of these tracks.
Yeah.
So, a few snippets here or there just to tease the airwaves. But you coming on the show, man, it's been awesome for me. Music is such a big part of my life, and
well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys kind of keeping the flame of what I do alive. Maybe someday I'll reignite it somewhat.
Well, maybe we'll try and have a little hand in doing that. Sherman and I always joke about having a music festival, so the joke is turning into reality. We want to try and make that happen.
Yeah,
let me know. I'll try to be a part of it.
That'd be awesome. Yeah,
we'd have it. Definitely have you on. That would be huge.
Yeah,
I would be into it.
Awesome.
Yeah, Sherman, any parting shots before we take off?
Hey, thank you very much. Like Neil said, really appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and we're from two big fans. We really appreciate you, and I don't need you to take your shirt off, but I do need you to stay on stage.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, I'm all good, buddy.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, man. We look forward to hearing a couple of tracks as we push them out there. Peter, thanks so much.
All right.
Peace out.
See you guys next week.
Wow, that was amazing. It's Neil Wilding here, and before we wrap up, I wanted to offer up a special thank you to Peter for coming on the show. He's truly a local legend around these parts, and if it wasn't obvious, Sherman and I are both huge fans of everything he's done, from Squirrel Bait and Big Wheel to Starbilly and all of his solo stuff. And now we have some bonus content for everyone. Peter has a few unreleased tracks that he's laid down as part of the Guilty Birds project with his former Squirrel Bait bandmate Ben Daughtry, Grant Fitch from the band Paw. He referenced this in the conversation that we just had, and he's kindly offered up a few songs for our Southern Hang audience. So now, once again, I introduce to you the great Peter Searcy, who's going to set up 2 Guilty Birds songs, and then we'll get to play a little snippet of each song for you. Thanks. Enjoy.
Well, this song's called Nervous Kid, and I was trying to write, literally like a banger song, something that just kind of had a pulse to it. And then so that's kind of what we came up with. And, it's a pretty simple tune, but then I got it home and I was thinking about being a kid, and the biggest fear I think of any child of my age, it was looking on the horizon and seeing a nuclear explosion, because that was such a big deal back in the Cold War days when I was a little kid. And that's kind of what this song is about. So enjoy. This is Nervous Kid.
I lived inside my head, so I was never alone, watching for cold war clouds from a latchkey home. You made a nervous kid. You made a nervous kid. You made a nervous kid out of me. I don't want to walk around on eggshells. I don't want to tiptoe around.
This is This House Has Secrets. and it's kind of a moody tune. We were playing in the studio, and we were driving home from the studio. I was playing "Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden" to Ben, who had never heard it, and I like the way like the Talk Talk stuff kind of fell together and had this mood feel to it. So this is kind of our ham-fisted version of, you know, a Talk Talk song filtered through how the Guilty Birds would kind of play it.
House echoes like a bird that's trapped in a room.
So there you have it. And if you can't tell, I just really don't want this episode to end. But alas, it's that time. Before we go, one last little nugget. This episode is going to drop on April 13th, but we actually recorded this episode a few weeks ago. Over a few days, actually, which those of you on the YouTube channel can tell with the various attire. But anyway, since we recorded, there's been some squirrel bait news. That's right, that music made by 16, 17, 18-year-old kids in Louisville, Kentucky, that music that played such a heavy influence on legends like Kurt Cobain and Dave Grohl of Nirvana, that music that influenced a whole generation of rock and roll stars, that music, both the self-titled EP, Squirrel Bait, that's the one with Sun God that Dave Grohl invited Peter on stage to perform live with the Foo Fighters, and their full-length debut, Skag Heaven. They're both getting a re-release on vinyl by Drag City Records. You can pre-order them now on dragcity.com. I know I did. All right, it's days like this where I just thank my good friend Sherm, Red, and Cotton for doing this little Southern Hang thing with me. And of course, thank you all so much for listening. I feel the power of the sun on my back. So good, that heat's good. That light has a mind to take it away. Take it away. We'll see you next week.